Evergy. I'm gonna put my video off just because I'm going to be getting ready for work,
Okay.
and I'll be taking you all with me on the journey.
All right. It's morning time there in New Zealand. Okay.
Yeah, it's 7:30 in the morning here.
Right. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Om Angana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidal Gododaya Pushpavandal Chitral Sundal Tamonudal. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are just like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali and to wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Jayatam Suratel Pangur Mamamanda Mater Gati Matsarvasva Padambujal Radha Madhana Mohana. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madan Mohan. I am lame and ill-advised, yet they are my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpachumada Srimad Ratnagara Singhasana Style Srimad Srila Radha Govinda Deval Pristali B. Savyamane Smarami. In a temple of jewels in a forest of Vrindavan beneath a desire tree, Sri Sri Radha and Govinda, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon an effulgent throne. I offer them my respectful obeisances. Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Sivata Tatastita Karshan Venu Staner Goper Gopinata Shriyestuna. Srila Gopinath, who is the inaugurator of the transcendental mellow of the Rasa dance, stands upon the shore of Advamsivat and attracts all the cowherd damsels of Raja with the sound of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladini Shaktir Asmade Katmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedham Gatao Tao Chetan Akyam Akata Duna Tatvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Svarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although these two transcendental personalities are one, they eternally separated themselves, and now they have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I bow down to him, who has accepted the complexion and sentiment of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. It's January 5th, 2025. And here in our Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita study group, we're studying the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila Chapter 11, entitled The Passing of Haridas Thakur. The passing of Srila Haridas Thakur. I'll read the first verse of this chapter, given to us by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Namami Haridasam Tam Chaitanyam Tam Chatat Prabhu Samstitam Mahapiyan or Team Svanke Kritva Nanartaya. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Haridas Thakur and his master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who danced with the body of Haridas Thakur on his lap. Just that first verse is, well, yeah, I appreciated the comments and sharing of all of you. I just read from Kumar earlier today. I liked how you shared that, Kumar. Well, that it was very moving how you shared your heartfelt, satiated, blissful, warm, submerged in love, and you noted such joyful celebration at death. And I like how you said that this is such a joyful celebration at death. Perhaps it's unmatched in the annals of literature as this chapter. So that's profound. That's special. And yeah, yeah. So and um, so of course, such as we read, Lord Chaitanya is dancing with the body, like such incredible imagery from the factual pastimes of this disappearance pastime. And so, there's that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata takvideham punarjanma neti mameti surjuna. And Krishna talks about one who understands the transcendental nature of my birth, disappear, my technically appearance. Sometimes Prabhupada will say the birthday of Krishna, the birthday of a pure devotee, but more technically, it's the appearance, because it's not born of the modes of nature. And so for Krishna, the pure devotee, so, oh yeah, how come I hear dancing at death? What's that? So of course it is a different, like this sort of, that was a theme in our correspondence, chanting, dancing, and feasting. Anasuya in comment to some of what Bharat wrote. And so then I sent comments about Prabhupada saying, really, really what Krishna consciousness is all about is chanting, dancing, and feasting. And so, yeah, so this is my kind of spiritual path. And yeah, it's just so intensely, intimately, relentlessly personal. Well, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita exemplifies that. The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita exemplifies. And this chapter, as much or more than it, just, it's not just like, oh well, okay, so the illusion of personhood merged into no, the person of Haridas Thakur and Lord Chaitanya, I'll call it such bittersweet affection and celebration. And so just so personal, the dancing, and Lord Chaitanya organized it with the support of Sri Damodar Goswami organizing the festival, and the Haridas Thakur making a transcendently pitiful request, and let me see her, and then having all the devotees around, just such warm, intimate personhood, and that's really that's the pinnacle of spiritual life. Spiritual life is not, oh, now that I'm spiritual, I reject personhood. No, the pinnacle of personhood. Even we say Radha Krishna. So we're really talking about that personal relationship. So such warm, intimate, with the whole range of human emotion. So there's celebration, there's dancing, there's chanting, there's feasting, there's singing at the same time. So it's one, it's one with all the pastimes of the pure devotees of Haridas Thakur. And at the same time, each pastime is distinct. So like there's a different flavor on the chanting, dancing, and feasting on the disappearance pastime of Haridas Thakur, let's say compared to a Sri Krishna Janmastami celebration. There's also chanting, dancing, feasting, and at the same time, so it's the same. It's Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. At the same time, there's distinction. There's it's oneness and distinction, and so all the pastimes, all of the pastimes of the pure devotee, speaking here personally of Srila Haridas Thakur, they're transcendental. And so to hear about them, to discuss them, which we're dedicated to do here, any of the pastimes, Haridas Thakur, not being distracted from chanting his 300,000 names a day when Maya herself tries to tempt him. Haridas Thakur being beaten in 22 marketplaces, right? Like from all material calculations, he should have died. And so all the pastimes, different flavors, and they're all transcendental. And thus we're encouraged to hear about, discuss, read about, enter into the pastimes, generally of the pure devotees. Here, Srila Haridas Thakur just earlier today here in Lishnice, Czech Republic, uh, uh, Ladini Shakti Prabhu led a class and discussion, and she chose a verse from the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It was the chapter where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, Yukta Hara Viharasya, Yukta Chestasa Karmasu, Yukta Swapna Vodasya, Yoga Bhavati Dukkha. It's a few verses, and Krishna and then Srila Prabhupada and the purpose are speaking about the importance of balance in the yoga system, in bhakti yoga, to not pull the reins too tight, not let the reins too lead, to be balanced in recreation, in work. And anyhow, I'm mentioning that because in the purport to that verse of the 6th chapter, Srila Prabhupada happens to mention Srila Haridas Thakur, and how Srila Haridas Thakur would not eat anything till he completed his 300,000 names of God that day. So not to imitate Haridas, not to imitate that, at the same time to follow that, to follow that example. And I'm mentioning that because it was just kind of a random verse. Ladini Shakti was not trying to choose a verse that happened to mention Haridas Thakur. We can see just how profusely Srila Prabhupada and his teachings. Um, uh, Srila Prabhupada references Srila Haridas Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's admiration, love, and affection for Srila Haridas Thakur, and that he happened to appear in the verse we read somewhat at random this morning from Bhagavad Gita. Here in the Antya-lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Haridas Thakur is just all over Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's a primary personality. Chapter 3, I think, of the Antya-lila is about the glories of Haridas Thakur. Now another whole chapter about the passing away of Haridas Thakur. And I definitely noted, Anandini, how you were like really awakened and moved. This is Lord Brahma, the head of our Sampradaya, appearing of Srila Haridas Thakur. He's sometimes referred to as Brahma Haridas Thakur. And so, um, so this celebration at the time of the disappearance pastime, it's an opportunity to celebrate the disappearance pastime and to remember and to glorify and appreciate and absorb and immerse ourselves in the life of this great personality, Srila Haridas Thakur. And again, there's so much about him, in Srila Prabhupada's books. Well, okay, so well, one thing is, yeah, he appeared in, like, in the context of Vedic society, he appeared in a family that's off the charts on the low side. Like it doesn't even make like make uh Chandala like that. And it's, like sub Sudra, like off the charts on the low side. And that's like, so he's just such a key personality for us. So again, we're talking about the disappearance pastime, and the disappearance pastime is a natural time to see, like, what's he mean for me? Or not that I have much feeling or realization, but what's Prabhupada communicating about him that Prabhupada wants us to get? And so, there's the verse spoken by Srila Shukadev Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kirata Hunanja Pulinda Pukasha Birushumba Yavanakashadia Ine Chapapa Yadapashayashaya Shujanti Tasmai Papa Vishnave Namaha. That verse mentions low-born races, and it mentions the Turks and the Greeks. It mentions those from areas we would now call the the Slavic regions, and Russia and Germany, and of course the Americans came from the European stock, and it mentions the Africans and whatever. And we know from Mahabharata there was all sorts of Vedic Kshatriya races that dispersed in a diaspora, and they kind of left the Vedic culture, and that's how the world got populated in many respects. And anyhow, that verse says, but yes, that however or wherever, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So in whatever race, whatever psychophysical nature someone is born into, as far as this body, they all become purified by associating with a pure devotee. They're all purified by sincerely embracing and giving themselves to the process of bhakti yoga, shuddhanti. So the non-sectarianism, the universal nature, the Yeah, Krishna consciousness is for everyone. Krishna consciousness for everyone, and that's one amongst many just core fundamental principles that Srila Haridas Thakur represents, embodies, and personifies. Um, I just noted here. Okay, this is right. That let's see. This is from Antya-lila Chapter 3, text 193 to 197. And this is Lord Chaitanya, so he's just taken sannyas. And so it would be kind of natural for a Vaishnav sannyasi to go to Vrindavan. And so Lord Chaitanya tried to do that. He got tricked by Lord Nityananda and Advaitacharya. They brought him back to Shantipur, and it's very kind of unconventional. It's kind of crossing the boundaries of sannyas, but they brought his mother, so for sannyas, he took sannyas, and like, here's your mom. It's kind of, what kind of, what kind of sannyas, what kind of start to sannyas ashram is this? Anyhow, so but Lord Chaitanya, he's completely sold out to his mother, and his mother, his I won't go through that whole set of pastimes, but so his mother says, okay, well, look, so yeah, why don't you base yourself at Jagannath Puri? That's a center of Vaishnavism, Lords Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, and and yeah, base yourself there. Then I still won't see you, but at least because all of the Prabhus from here, from Navadvip, they regularly go. They make the pilgrimage to Jagannath Puri, so I'll get news about you. So Lord Chaitanya said, I must follow my mother's advice and recommendation. So then they're okay. Lord Chaitanya is going to go to Jagannath Puri, and it's a wonderful scene. And then and then Haridas Thakur similarly to in this chapter we're reading, he speaks in a transcendently pitiful way. I'll just read those 5 verses from Antya-lila Chapter 3. I'll read them. After requesting all the devotees to return home, the Lord decided to go to Jagannath Puri. At that time, Haridas Thakur began to cry and speak some pathetic words. Haridas Thakur said, "You are going to Jagannath Puri, and that is all right, but what will be my destination? I am not able to go to Jagannath Puri because I am the lowest among men. I shall not be able to see you. How shall I maintain my sinful life?" The Lord replied to Haridas Thakur, "Please check your humility. Just the sight of your humility very much agitates my mind." Lord Chaitanya assured Haridas Thakur that he would place a petition before Lord Jagannath and that he would certainly take him there to Jagannath Puri. So, of course, as we know, as is clearly evident in this chapter, chapter 11 of Antya-lila, Haridas Thakur did go and base himself at Jagannath Puri, and he was not allowed in the temple, and such restrictions are there today. I'll just straight up, they're not good restrictions. They're not based on sattvic or transcendental principles. And I feel, who are you to criticize these priests with the ancient lineage? Well, Srila Prabhupada was very clear that no, this is materially based. So it's not, they're not spiritually or sattvically valid restrictions, like based on the color of the skin or one's birth. And and uh, and so it significantly, so Haridas Thakur said, well, I will not be able to go to the temple. And if you're living in the temple, he assumed Lord Chaitanya would live in the temple. I'll never see you. So what's my fate? Like speaking such bittersweet emotion. And so, of course, so Haridas Thakur went to Jagannath Puri. Lord Chaitanya said, I'll take care of things. So Lord Chaitanya So significantly, neither Lord Chaitanya nor Haridas Thakur, they didn't protest. Now, even though like the rules are not kind of aligned with, Vaishnava principles of universality and but they didn't protest, and that's significant. And it's not that, oh, because Lord Chaitanya was always peaceful and he never protested. That's not true. Like right in the Adi Lila, we have the Lord Chaitanya. He gathered a protest of like 100,000 people. Now, Lord Chaitanya was peaceful, but he protested. Some of his followers didn't remain completely peaceful. It's described they did trample on some property, and the Chankazi was fearful, like, whoa, what's that? So it's not that Lord Chaitanya was averse to protesting, because that was the the government was breaking the mridungas and preventing the chanting. So Lord Chaitanya was like, no, we're not tolerating this. Interesting there, interestingly there. Then ultimately and eventually, the Chankazi did come down, and Lord Chaitanya and the Chankazi, they have a one-on-one talk with their different followers around. Interestingly, we might think that Lord Chaitanya would start the talk about with about the universality of chanting the names of God, whether in the Islamic tradition or the names of Krishna, chanting the names of God. I know, like when Srila Prabhupada, when he would go to like Iran, for example, of course he would be with many Indian-bodied people, but when he was with those who identified as Muslims, he wasn't emphasizing chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He was emphasizing, oh, you have your 99 names of God in the Quran. Chant those names. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kila, Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. That's the Yuga Dharma. Any Nam Namakri Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti Statropita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etajashi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordevam Ijashami Hajanina Nuraga. Any name of God is invested with transcendental purifying potency. Similarly, if he was with Christian monks or priests, he would encourage them. You have a name of God, chant that. And of course, if someone like didn't really have a name of God, Paul would say, "Well, I have an idea for you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." But Lord Chaitanya did not start there in speaking to the Chankazi, because the whole pastime was around trying to stop the kirtan. But he didn't start there. Lord Chaitanya, interestingly, he talked about don't kill the cow. How come you're killing the cow? He talked about, yeah, don't kill the cow. So I just find that very interesting. For me, it indicates like, yes, the chanting is the Yuga Dharma, whatever name of God. And of course, there's something special about Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. At the same time, Lord Chaitanya is indicating kind of like, yeah, like it'll be like extraordinarily challenging to get the finer subtle principles of spiritual life if we're eating dead animals, especially the cow. So interesting. So Haridas Thakur, of course, spent many years in Jagannath Puri, and he did not protest, and he did not go into the Jagannath Puri temple. So he could not see Jagannath, but wonderfully, Lord Jagannath personally brought him lunch prasad every day. So he could not see Lord Jagannath, Baladev or Subhadra, but Lord Jagannath in the form of Lord Chaitanya personally delivered him prasadam every day. Right? In our Prema Dvani mantras, we say, yes, uh, that Nantakoti Vaishnavindagita Namacharya, right? So of all of the wonderful pure chanters of the holy name, this Brahma Haridas Thakur, who took birth in what would be considered by Vedic standards a very low family. He's the teacher by example of the holy name. That is so, that is so illustrative of the principle, the reality of the universality of what Prabhupada has given us in the name of Lord Chaitanya, in the name of Sri Krishna, in the name of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I appreciate it. Many of you in your responses, you're sharing, the Bharat that was there in your responses. Yeah, you were like just hearing about Haridas Thakur. You were moved to inspiration, inspiration to gratitude, to for Mangalarti, for chanting japa. I know today I was thinking, okay, I volunteered for the service of leading the class and the discussion today. So of course I prepared by reading your responses, reading over my responses, looking at the chapter again, and I chanted extra rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, what an obvious ideal way to prepare to engage in conversation and in kata about Srila Haridas Thakur. And um, actually, Srila Bhaktivinoda's famous poem was he wrote this specifically about the disappearance pastime of Srila Haridas Thakur. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. The Vaishnavas die to live and living try to spread the holy name around. So Srila Bhaktivinoda, that Srila Prabhupada quotes that stanza of a poem from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote it specifically about Srila Haridas Thakur. And so in honoring, celebrating the disappearance pastime of a Vaishnava, speaking here of the extraordinarily potent, pure Vaishnava, Srila Brahma Haridas Thakur, we review his life. I've endeavored to mention just a very few highlights of the pastimes of Haridas Thakur. And then we also naturally we think, okay, so we can review, we can celebrate, appreciate, and how can we please? How can we serve Srila Haridas Thakur? And certainly an essential response to that. An essential response to that is to chant with humble enthusiasm, to chant with presence and attentiveness, to chant Hare Krishna, of course, to serve the Sankirtan mission, and specifically Haridas Thakur, these Namacharya. He is the example by his behavior of chanting. So on the appearance and disappearance days of special great Vaishnavas, it's encourage a thing. How can I please? Like what have they given to me in my life, and how can I please them? And so chanting certainly comes to mind and heart when thinking about Srila Haridas Thakur. Yeah, we mentioned earlier that so all of the pastimes of pure devotees like Srila Haridas Thakur, like Srila Prabhupada, are transcendently infused with transformational potency. And so they're all one, they're all transcendental. At the same time, there's distinctive flavors. I mean, I'm remembering, I know some of you have, heard me share a bit about like when both my both my uh, mother in 2010 and my father in 2012, when they uh, left their bodies, and of course they did not dedicate their lives um, uh, to the holy names, but I this kind of like just some glimpse in my personal experience. So of course, there's like sadness on the death. At the same time, with my mother in her last hours, days. I was with her as we were chanting Hare Krishna together. She was hearing Srila Prabhupada chanting on a recording with my father in 2012, like in that last 45 minutes, just as he left his body, myself and my daughter were with him, chanting intensively, and so so mainly, like there was some sadness for me, but mainly these were joyful experiences, and the joy, yeah, these are joyful experiences, and the joy is because I got to be with mom and dad at their departure. I got to be with them, and with my dad, also with my daughter there, also chanting. And then I got to be with them with chanting Hare Krishna. And so that's the bliss. And again, Hare, that like that represents Haridas Thakur's contribution to the universe, chanting Hare Krishna, committed to, he wouldn't eat a morsel till he completed at least 300,000 names of God. Such dedication. And here we are in Europe and USA and New Zealand. Here we are, chanting Hare Krishna mantra because of Haridas Thakur, and of course, because Srila Prabhupada got on the Jala to um, to 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 make the world aware of Srila Haridas Thakur, right? Like if it weren't for Srila Prabhupada, I would never hear Haridas Thakur or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Maybe I'd heard Bhagavad Gita and some scholarly that had nothing, no connection to devotion. And so, um, okay. Um, I've spoken a few things, and um, there's so much we could expand on, but I've touched on a few themes that according to my realization and understanding, are essential and core and vital to the pastimes and example and teachings of Srila Haridas Thakur. Teachings, because of course Srila Haridas Thakur, he's the quintessential follower and disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At the same time, Srila Haridas Thakur, kind of like with Srila Ramananda Roy, in some pastimes, Srila Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya would put himself in the role of student, in the role of questioner, in the role of hearer, and he would inquire from Haridas Thakur. And we can see that in this chapter. Lord Chaitanya, he's just like, I, yeah, I'm just fully under the control of Haridas Thakur, like that. Lord Chaitanya considered himself Haridas Thakur's student. Haridas Thakur was the Acharya. So there's so much more to expand on and visit. And at the same time, I thought to pause there, and I'll be glad for anyone to hear from you. If anyone would like to share any comments, ask any questions, share any realizations. Anasuya.
Krishna, thank you so much. I was remembering Bharat's question about chanting, um, loudly, silently, softly, in the presence of others. And I was sharing that I was going to Mother Melanie's for New Year's Day, and there turned out to be 8 of us that began the day together at 4 a.m. and chanted for 8 hours. And we were really appreciating the sharing afterwards when we were taking prasadam, and everyone was expressing their experience. And so this is my third time doing this. The first 2 were at Prabhupada's house. And with Mother Melanie's ashram being so intimate, and for 8 of us to be together so closely, it was very prevalent. So the sound vibrations, everyone was, soft, loud, whatever.
Yeah.
And if someone went silent, someone shared, then it reminded me, oh, like get out of my head again, because I'm hearing the chanting of my surrounding devotees, and it reminded me like how easily I can just drift away and forget about the Lord. And so it was very supportive to have 8 of us chanting together. At least for the first 2 hours, we were really dedicated to be in the same space together. And then eventually, as things went on, people moved around. And but it was a really nice way to start the potency. And there was also a request, which we didn't follow, but I was thinking I would like to maybe incorporate this whenever I choose to host such a gathering, is to chant the first couple of rounds together in unison. Like, I think that would also have been very especially potent. Like maybe the first hour, we just chant together. And then the other part of the experience was like how many of us got to the 64 rounds after the 8 hours. And so there was some sharing, and we had some senior devotees like Srila Prabhupada disciples there. That was really amazing for me to be in that space with everyone. And so I noticed that most did not complete the 64 rounds, and they're like, but I'm committed before the end of today. I'm going to have my 64 rounds. And so everyone has their own process style. And I was really appreciating that yes, being individual and also as a group. It was like that was happening simultaneously. Like the people are having their own individual experiences, and as a group, we were having an experience together. And so I just, so I guess there's not a wrong way to chant, is my point. In my experience from New Year's Day, and we all benefited. Especially, I felt like when I went outside to do the Japa walk, I actually was actually seeing many people in the neighborhood as it was becoming daylight and people walking their dogs or whatever, and so good morning, I was full of energy, and I was like so full of joy, and it was just like really beautiful to meet people on the street, and just being able to spread the transcendental sound vibrations. Anyway, I'm really enjoying chanting, and so Haridasta Kaur, of course, came up in conversation. So I was just reflecting that we were going to be doing this chapter soon, and so it was a wonderful way to start the year. And so I'm just appreciating that we have this time again today to glorify Haridasta Kaur, and I also feel it very much so in 5 a.m. Manglarati when the pranams are given. It's also very especially potent now. So appreciating everyone sharing, and my experiences with chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anasuya. Thanks for your joyful sharing connected with Srila Haridas Thakur and chanting Hare Krishna. And yes, it just sounds very intensely purifying and blissful. What you described, the 8 of you for 8 hours at Mother Malini's, and dedicated to 8 hours of chanting, and maybe some did 64 rounds, maybe some less, maybe some more. You were dedicated, well, okay, I'm chanting 64 rounds today. And that was part of our correspondence. And you might, of course, to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra silently in the mind. That's a wonderful thing to do with the mind, like that. And my understanding that Srila Prabhupada's recommendation is for the japa rounds that we chant, that we count towards fulfilling our commitment, to chant them at least loud enough for ourselves to hear, and like if someone was passing by 3 feet away, that they could hear, like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with chanting completely silently, but for the rounds we chant for fulfilling our commitment. Actually, I just read, because we we've been somewhat absorbed in the Gayatri mantra here the past few days. We had a Brahminical initiation. And so I was reading some comments from Srila Prabhupada. He said, yeah, the Gayatri is specifically meant to be chanted not silently, but softly. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is more designed for loudly, but at least loud enough for ourselves to hear and someone close by. Yeah, what we've done, yeah, we've done these. So we've done a few of these 64 rounds days. So sometimes what we would do, including when Mother Malini and I would organize them together, going back more than maybe a dozen years. Sometimes we do one per year or so. Sometimes we would the evening before, we would have a little program and we'd chant at least one round in unison. And then the next morning we would chant. Yeah, to me, because of course it generally takes more time to chant around in unison. At the same time, for me, it sounds like a nice idea to enhance the whole experience. That the first round at 3 or 4 a.m. is in unison. Sometimes what we've done, just for future reference, because I know you've done these 3 years in a row now. I know, actually, last year we did one of them in Wheeler, Switzerland, and with at Anandini and Paramatma's place. Sometimes what we've done is, like, say, if we chant from 4 to 12, then 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 we come together for one final round in unison before the kirtan. And we've done it in different ways. I'm very joyful from your sharing. Thank you, Anasuya. Hare Krishna. I welcome if anyone else would like to share, express, ask, express realizations. Kumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. It was just a quick question around chanting rounds, and what do you think Srila Prabhupada's intention was in prescribing 16 rounds as opposed to 2 hours, for example?
Okay. Thanks for that question. That question comes up. That question has come up in our community. Okay. Thanks for that. And of course, if someone commits, I'm going to chant for 2 hours. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And at the same time, Prabhupada made it quantitative in terms of number of rounds rather than number of minutes or hours. So how come? How come? And there are, okay, I'll start with an exception that we, like, for the most part, Prabhupada doesn't want us to follow. There's one letter to a disciple who was like, he had a job in his father's business and he had other stuff going on. And Prabhupada wrote to, and he was an initiated disciple who had taken the 16 rounds per day vow. But at one point, Prabhupada wrote, in a very personal, Prabhupada said, okay, here's what I recommend. You just chant 1 hour per day, meaning like, maybe you'll chant 4 rounds, maybe you'll chant 16 rounds in the hour. You just clear 1 hour per day and do that. And so, but that was like a personal guidance according to Prabhupada's relation with that particular. So I again, my understanding, and I'm glad to hear from others, is that by asking committed disciples, a minimum of 16 rounds, and generally Prabhupada would speak in terms of number of rounds rather than amount of time. That, of course, ultimately it's about the sincerity, and someone can be chanting, I chanted my rounds, and there's hardly any feeling to it, and someone could, well, I didn't commit to any rounds, but they're just chanting and there's so much feeling, and Prabhupada and Krishna recognize the feeling. Still, by committing to quantity, quality of feeling comes. So I would say Prabhupada could understand that by commitment to time rather than number of mantras or rounds, it provides relatively more escape hatches that could be rationalized. That's an understanding I have. Escape hatches, like, yeah, chant it for Hare. Yeah, I was just like that. That with like commitment to a number, it like gives more of a structure, gives more of a structure that that doesn't really leave space for the mind. Let's say someone, this is maybe extreme, but yeah, I chanted one mantra for 20 minutes and it was so you get where I'm going. Now, now someone could chant one mantra in 20 minutes and it could be so connected with Sri Sri Radha Krishna, but it can also lead to the Sahajya thing. And I think Prabhupada saw that. And so committing to a number, 16 times 108 per day, it's more of a structure to to support the focus and to reduce the possibility of cheating. That's some thoughts I have.
It sounds like you're suggesting that Prabhupada was coming from a pragmatist perspective. And to me, it seems like there are perhaps pros and cons if you're going to codify it in one way or the other. But he perhaps felt on the balance that one was preferable. Because the reason I mention it is just, yes, I've noticed in myself that when I'm trying to do a certain number of rounds or mantras, no, gosh, I'm so busy today, So then the proclivity is to go fast.
Yeah.
And to kind of rush it
Gotcha. Yeah.
and I remember growing up in Gurukul at Bhaktivedanta Manor and hearing lots of devotees, and they fall into their special idiosyncratic Mahamantra, and sometimes I can't even identify the Mahamantra there. I can hear a Krishna and there's something, and I wonder there must be some effect around whatever the audio equivalent is of aesthetics, and there being some degree of pronunciation accuracy. But those were just my thoughts, and you've already answered that perhaps it's the pragmatic balance of the two that Srila Prabhupada was considering.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. And I definitely have that experience too. Can hardly identify the Maha Mantra. I'm not pointing the finger. I mean, I'm pointing the finger and I have three fingers pointing at myself. I have my idiosyncratic, and I know there's a lot of inattentiveness and it's mechanical like that. So I think I can relate and empathize with what you're talking about. For sure, I like, let's say, if actually just as we've had continuous nonstop bhakti yoga programs the past three weeks here in London and then Switzerland and Czech Republic. And remember at one program I was sharing, I read something from Srila Prabhupada. And particularly Prabhupada says, the real thing is the feeling. Bhakti is the feeling. It's not intrinsically about the numbers or I accomplished this. The service is there to engage us, and the real thing is the feeling. So sure, I feel certain if Prabhupada was presented with an alternative of choice, like, okay, let's say someone chants for 10 minutes with feeling, like true feeling, not sahaja, true feeling, compared to someone chants for 2 hours, blah, 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 just to get the rounds done. Srila Prabhupada would say, Krishna appreciates the feeling. That's what, I'm sure that's what Prabhupada would say. At the same time, I like how you said that in Prabhupada, considering all the considerations that for our long-term getting out of the ocean of material existence, Prabhupada gave us recommended commit to 16 rounds per day, that numerical commitment. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kumar Prabhu. Yogeshwar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Dhira Govinda Prabhu, for your presentation, and Kumar for your question and the discussion you had about it. It feels to me after I listened to you that one can like misuse both in a same way, like in a different direction, but really both can be misused. My understanding is like there is a science with the japa chanting. So, for example, one mantra is one unit of worship. So there is certain meaning behind those numbers, actually. And then, like from the practical point of view, if I do not have any technology with me, I do not even need the japa mala. I can count it on my fingers. I can still count the rounds. But if I do the commitments scheduled by time, I need to have some clock. And for example, what if I'm put into jail? Then there might not be a clock. So it might be quite difficult to fulfill the commitment. So the commitment is scheduled in a way that I can still fulfill it, and I don't even need something for that. So these are like a few thoughts. And of course, like in Shastra, there is mention that it's like a certain number of rounds following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. So my understanding is Prabhupada is following that. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. I appreciate all those points. I like the term you used, that each mantra, because of course each name of God is complete in itself. Hare, Krishna, Rama. At the same time, the 16-word, 32-syllable Maha Mantra, I like how you term that. It's a unit of worship that's it's making an impact on me. And then the point of, that if we're committing to numbers, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, well, of course, we hear about the 6 Goswamis with beads. We hear Lord Chaitanya, he would count the mantras on his fingers. And so, we don't need any device if our commitment is numerical. And thanks for, the Goswami, there's the verse by Srinivasacharya Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kalava Sani Kritao Nidraha Ravi Harakadi Vijitao Chajanta Dina Chayao Radha Krishna Gunasmiter Madhuriman Andena Samoitao Vande Upasana Tana Raguyugao Sri Jiva Gopala Kao. Prabhupada references that so much. Sankhya, they a quantity, a numerical. They would do their sadhana chanting, offering obeisances with a numerical quantity. And so we're in the line of the Goswamis, and Prabhupada's giving us that line. And through such dedicated commitment, they transcended needs for eating and sleeping, and were always engaged in the enchanting service of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Thanks for that's such a reference to the Goswami. Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kala Vasani Krital. They were so they were so committed to the numerical, and it's not about being mechanical, but that through, Prabhupada would say, through commitment to the quantity, quality comes. There's a conversation, a morning walk or a room conversation. Kind of my sense of the conversation is maybe some of the Prabhupada students were kind of like 16, oh 16, right? Like a little bit, whoa, 16, you know. And Prabhupada said, why not? Why not 16,000 rounds? Why not 16,000 per day? And so Prabhupada's like, yeah, you need 16 because you're not feeling, I want to chant 16,000, because you're not feeling that enthusiasm, that separation, that hunger. I want to chant 16,000. Therefore, you need to commit to 16. And let's call it in transformative communication language, because you're feeling I have to. Whereas, sure, if a spirit soul, a devotee comes to the point where just full bliss, I get to chant my rounds. I get to chant my rounds. And then they want to, then they're disappointed. There's not enough time in the day to chant 16,000 rounds. Then Prabhupada's saying, then you don't need to commit. You don't need to commit to any number, any time, because that's like all you want to do is blissfully chant Hare Krishna. But because you don't have that taste, Prabhupada's saying, therefore we have this commitment of 16. Thanks for all your points, Yogeshwar. Atmananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, dear Govinda Prabhu, for your expansive and expanding presentation. This question about chanting that you brought up, Kumar, I've never actually heard or considered that question. And yet the discussion that's come out of this is very revealing. I think you can probably confirm this, dear Govinda, about Peter Burwash, when he had time with Prabhupada, who was explaining him how to do business in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Having sent his own servant, Prabhupada's own servant, out of the room at that time, so he could talk to Peter. As far as I know, Peter Burwash asked Prabhupada if he would initiate him if he chanted only 8 rounds a day. I don't know if you've heard that, and Prabhupada said no.
Like I've not heard that. It's interesting. I've not heard that, and I did have a few personal conversations with Peter Burwash, but I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I haven't heard that, and that
Right.
it sounds consistent with how Prabhupada would respond. So
Yes, at the same time, my experience, and maybe yours more, of Peter Burwash is at least when I heard him speak at Bhaktivedanta Manor, he was so absorbed and sold out and surrendered to Prabhupada in his life. He would wear his japa beads in bed, so he was connected in that way, and he would always read Krishna book before he took rest. He told us these things. And I mean, just his mood was so moving. I've always been very impressed. That's the only time I've met him personally. But obviously he's written something in the relationships that work.
He wrote the foreword to the 2nd edition of Relationships That Work.
Yes.
And he writes there about some things that Prabhupada told him.
Yes, Prabhupada told him 2 things that changed his life.
Yes.
Also the question of chanting silently. And thank you, Anasuya, for your sharing about your experience at Mother Malini's. It's very, very inspiring for me. I'm going to take it off the subject at least for a moment. I think Anasuya and Bharat will talk about the chanting more, but I was impressed by the way this pastime was amplified, because in this chapter, it's actually the whole pastime is described 3 times. There in the introduction first, the Prabhupada from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah.
the second time, the whole chapter itself. And at the end, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami
Yeah.
reviews the whole past a third time.
Yeah.
So I don't
yeah.
know if I don't remember if that's ever been there in any other chapter, but the pastime being so amplified and so made so prominent by repeating it, having it repeated
Yeah.
3 times.
I appreciate your bringing our attention to the structure of the chapter, and I think it might be distinctive. Thanks for bringing our attention there.
Yeah. I was also impressed by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's begging for devotional service in texts 5 through 8 from the devotees, and he doesn't directly ask even Lord Chaitanya for devotional service. He's asking the devotees. Advaita Charya, I mean, he's Vishnu Tattva, but it's I found that he's begging for devotional service, even though he's so qualified. There's this humility, but this aspiration. Prabhupada says about the Goswamis, they never talked about, oh, I've seen Krishna, I have Krishna, I'm with Krishna. Where is Krishna? This mood of longing and begging and separation.
Yes.
So that was another thing. And in terms of the Harinam, up here in the north of the North Island in New Zealand, we have a youth tour group, bus tour group traveling, and yesterday they just came to our town here. So we made a nice feast for them, and we served them prasadam. And today, this morning, which I'll probably join, we're all going on Harinam through the town.
Right.
So our future hope, the second, third generation, it's very enlivening to have these young-bodied devotees with us. Very special.
Yeah, following fully in the line and spirit of Srila Haridas Thakur.
Yes, yes. And there's several other points, but I'll just make this final one, that in the text 101, in the purport, Prabhupada says, hearing of the actually, he quotes Bhakti Ratnakar. He says, hearing of the separation that Srinivas expressed in his lamentation at the tomb of Haridas Thakur makes one's heart melt. And I'm lamenting. I want to hear those prayers. I've searched everywhere. I even went to the extreme of asking AI, and I can't find it anywhere. And I don't even know if in the Bhakti Ratnakar the actual translation or the prayers are there. So I'm almost desperate to find out, because I want to hear those prayers of Srinivas expressing his lamentation at the tomb of Haridas Thakur, and considering how my heart might be affected in some small way. So if anyone, I mean, I've looked everywhere, and maybe it requires finding a translation or some. Do you know if Bhakti Ratnakar has been translated by any contemporary Vaishnavas, or any Vaishnava?
I'm not aware about that.
No, but I'm eager for that. Hopefully one day my desire will be fulfilled.
Well,
there's much more, but thank you.
I feel certain that your eagerness and frustration is noticed by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Haridas Thakur and Srinivasacharya, and that is a purifyingly painful emotion.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Atmananda Prabhu. Bharat Prabhu.
Okay, I had my hand up initially. First, I took it down, so I would pull the lady's first card here, if you want, Anasuya Mata.
You're deferring to Anasuya. Anasuya, if you'd like to share, let's be
Hare Krishna,
present.
thank you so much. It's so sweet. It just dawned on me as everyone was sharing that I've always wondered about taking prasad before finishing my rounds. Like I noticed like during the weekend when we would come to your home and
Yeah.
have the program, I imagine you haven't eaten anything until after class, and which could
Yeah.
be 9:30, 10 in the morning, and probably
Right.
later because you serve everyone first, and then you take after everyone's gone. You're like very very humble. So I'm seeing the significance in this chapter of I can't take any prasadam until my rounds are finished, and so I guess I didn't know what Prabhupada has to say on that, so I was just curious, and then knowing your example, I thought there might be some instruction that Prabhupada gave, but I'm not sure, so I was just curious.
Yeah, and then in that purport to Bhagavad Gita, a 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita purport, Prabhupada exalts Srila Haridas Thakur that he wouldn't eat anything till he completed 300,000 names, which I think comes to about 172 rounds or 175 rounds if we do the math. Okay, so my understanding about that, is like it's a nice principle. It's not something that Prabhupada required of his followers. I mean, it's there to chant in the morning, before breakfast prasad. But let's say if someone chants and they don't complete their vow of 16, okay, then okay, it could certainly be a nice vow. Like, well, I'm not gonna honor prasad till I complete my 16. If that means I have this and that, maybe I won't take prasad till the evening. Maybe I'll fast today. So it's like it's a wonderful vow. And at the same time, there's other principles too, because let's say, to associate with devotees while honoring prasad after morning program before getting on with our service, that's also a nice sweet principle. And so I would say like it's a nice principle. It's not like an absolute rock solid. Prabhupada really wants us to do that come hell or high water, something like that. But I would say and also maybe someone like, well, I didn't complete 16. I probably won't complete 16 till late afternoon, and maybe even for health considerations, it's not going to work so well. So there are considerations, but for myself, like I like to follow the principle that at least I'm not I'm not going to uh, eat. I'm not going to eat before chanting my rounds. At least not for any whimsical reason. Like if like even if my rounds don't get completed till late morning or something, it's a good principle to yeah, let me chant before. Of course, prasadam's transcendental, but my consciousness before enjoying the food, my consciousness, and so that like unless there's a strong reason not to follow it, I like to follow that principle.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I guess what I'm looking at is that is my personal decision. And if
Yeah,
I want to make that vow to Srila Prabhupada, then it might be something I could consider that I hadn't until now. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
thanks for sharing that. Yeah, uh, eh, thanks for that, Atmananda. My disease, I can't complete my. That's the spirit, Yeah, that's because like I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this. But like, oh no, my problem is I can't complete my rounds, and of course Haridas Thakur didn't have a problem because he was. Lord Chaitanya said, look, you can reduce the number of rounds at this time. But Haridas Thakur was not at all lenient with himself. In the conversation here, I'm reminded I want to say, hmm, uh, I think it was Vishnu Priya. I think Lord Chaitanya's wife, and I think his first wife was Lakshmi Priya, who died of the snake bite of separation. I think the second wife is Vishnu Priya, and it's described about Vishnu Priya that, of course, Lord Chaitanya went and took sannyas. She's young. That she would chant a round of japa, and then after completing a round of japa, she would put aside 1 grain of rice, and then after chanting whatever number of rounds of japa, then at the end of the day, however many of grains of rice, then she would cook that and offer it to Lord Chaitanya, and that was her prasad for the day. Now we're not going to imitate that, but it's a relationship between prasad and chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anasuya. Bharat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, first.
I'm hearing you though. Your voice is a bit faint.
Is it better like that? Is it
Could
good
you
now?
Maybe get a little closer to the microphone?
Okay. Or maybe.
I'm hearing you. Maybe just your voice is soft, but I'm hearing you well enough. Could be my hearing too.
Okay, I checked my settings, so now it's better, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, it was the setting. Okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know. And yeah, thanks for noting when I had my hand up and it went down again. And yeah, thank you for stretching yourself in this bhakti marathon in the last weeks. And yeah, I'm impressed you chose that chapter. You kind of grabbed it, it seemed, together with the last chapter. So I'm curious. I hadn't read those 2 chapters, and so yeah, I'm curious what were your intentions and what mercy you want to milk from that. And yeah, before I reply to your initial question about the numbers and what came to my mind, I want to reply to Anasuya first. Yeah, I was thinking about the tongue being disciplined in japa also. Yeah, it's now no time for eating. No, we're not switching modes here. It's only chanting, and then you can eat. Yeah, it's like a wild beast. I find, but yeah, no. Yeah, I also notice there how Maya can be very tricky. I need to eat first. Need to split the japa because I have some work to do or so, and then once my commitment is broken a little bit, then I get other ideas of eating just a little bit now because it's more practical. But yeah, I generally think it's a good idea to stick to it, very committed. So I'm very inspired by the whole sharing of Dear Govinda to do something like a japa pact to re-strengthen and re-enliven that practice, as it's the core engine of the whole bhakti process that we're doing. Yeah, I was also reminded of the number 300,000, and then the numbers. Yet now, regarding the context of your initial question with the or the question of Kumar initially regarding number versus time, I was reminded of the 300,000 names of Krishna, that Haridas Thakur chanted, and also the 64 rounds that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur chanted and his disciples. And then Prabhupada gave 64 to his disciples. It didn't work. He lowered it to half. It didn't work. So it has that historical background also. But I'm thinking of myself doing a workout. Whenever I look back in my life, if I just wanted to stay fit or do something I commit to, I go jogging for so many minutes or so. But if I want to be better, if I want to like seriously reach a goal, or I know from others who run marathon, they run a certain length of a track, or doing some muscle work. You always count the repetitions.
Repetitions,
You never do, I do 10 minutes this, or I mean, it might work for someone who is doing it as a hobby or just for fun. But if you do it seriously,
it's a number.
You count. And also it's important because everyone is individual. Everyone has a different body. And so that just came to my mind.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm inspired by your inspiration, perhaps to let this chapter and our discussions and our association move you to a japa personal achievement compact. I'll say, because in recent days we've been chanting together Bharat here in Lishnitse, and I know you've been challenged by some health challenges, and I've been impressed and inspired by you, that whatever the challenges, I experienced you there at japa time in the temple room, really focused and giving you determined effort to be like, I've been inspired by chanting with you. I want to mention that.
And I never had as good japa rounds as in your association, in your temple in Florida, and with the devotees there, and in association. And I know how low my japa goes when I'm alone. And I really want to connect with the suffering of also that inspiration and from this chapter, and especially also your feedback to my sharing and the low births, and then also look at the past, look at the presence, where am I suffering, and getting into the position of I need mercy. I cannot do anything on the strengths of myself lower than Chandala. It's it's really helpful for the ego that I notice my ego wants to be seen, acknowledged for all kinds of things, for japa, so for everything. So associating with the pure devotee, chanting with Srila Prabhupada in japa, I appreciated that also in the writings. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bharat Prabhu. My heart is touched by what I experience as your humility and vulnerability, and that's, I get that. That's your readiness and qualification to receive the mercy of Srila Haridas Thakur. Thank you also, Bharat, for you along with Anasuya, and you've accepted responsibility for some organization for, who's facilitating like that, and you noticed that yeah, when you came out with some chart, and then I chose this chapter. You asked, you want me to respond to your question? Yeah, I chose this chapter and then the chapter 20 of the Antya-lila. I mean, maybe when we get to chapter 20, which I guess will be in 7 months, maybe I'll respond about the Shikshastika. That chapter is the Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastika. Yeah, in our first 35, 40 minutes, I touched on various principles and points related to this chapter. And that's points that I considered particularly poignant and relevant and moving and inspirational. And, and so certainly a reason, not the only reason, a reason I chose this is, in my attempts, in my personal attempts at personal service for the past 28 years, and for the past 28 years, and intensified the past 10 years or so, and mega intensified the past 4 months or so. I've been absorbed. Along with my other endeavors to serve, I've been absorbed in the service of endeavoring, I'm absorbed in the service of revealing the pastimes and truths related to the disappearance pastime of another pure Vaishnava Acharya, our current link to the disciplic succession, Srila Prabhupada. So I've been absorbed in disappearance pastime, and so that's something that drew me to volunteer to facilitate the discussion and correspondence on this chapter. Certainly, I didn't, I'm only going there now. You asked a question, but I thought in my presentation, my introduction, those first 45 minutes, to make connections between that service that I'm involved in and have been involved in for 28 years, intensified in recent months, to make like direct connections between that and the departure pastime of Srila Haridas Thakur. I didn't do that, but that for me is I'll call it, it's not the only reason I kind of jumped and chose this chapter, but it's a foundational, fundamental, and emotionally rich reason for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, honestly, vulnerably, and I just want to briefly mention, my wife and I, even my children, we watched, looked at what you shared, and yeah, my children have partially read books of Nityananda, and I fully support that monumental work that you're doing. It's daring, and I find it's very much needed to break the taboo and to make the unspeakable speakable, even at the risk of cognitive dissonance with very good friends. And yeah, it's moving me. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Bharat Prabhu. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, and I've now and over the months, and even before that, but especially recent months, I've felt and appreciated and experienced the enthusiastic encouragement and support of you and your wife, Ananta Shakti Prabhu, in these endeavors at service to revealing the realities related to the departure pastime of Srila Prabhupada. And also, I think you did write to me also. Your children also watched the video, and glad to hear their so they have some interest in this topic related to Srila Prabhupada's activities, just related to the language you used. Back about 4 months ago, we sent some letter widely, and within the first day, we got many responses, some inspired and favorable, some very critical and attacking, as to be expected. But there was one temple president who's a friend of mine and a friend of several who are here. One temple president in a major ISKCON temple in North America, and he responded. He wrote, "You're challenging the silence. Wow, this is so wonderful. I feel we can breathe. We can actually speak." He used that term. You're challenging the silence. Wow. So I was just reminded of his language and hearing your appreciation. Thank you, Bharat Prabhu. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for all the sharing. I'm very happy that the focus is on the chanting. It's something that it's 10 years ago that I made a commitment to chant 16 rounds every day. I started chanting 19 years ago, but for 9 years without any commitment, just whatever I would do every day. Just this year I felt some regret that we didn't plan a Japa marathon while you were here.
Okay. Yeah.
Last year, and then on December 31st we went on Harinam in Prague.
Yeah.
And then on January 1st we had this fire sacrifice for Yogeshwar. He's disappeared. For Yogeshwar's and Lagini's son Bhuvanesh, and we had this yagya and the kirtan, and I had a brief moment of maybe similar, what Kumar you shared. You had like this split second moment of feeling like I don't know your words, but like this unconditional love of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
And I had this moment of like a glimpse of maybe that's what it feels like to be part of the Sankirtan movement. Like feeling at this fire yagya and doing the kirtan and just feeling complete peace and joy.
Yeah.
And there's no better place to be. And with that experience, I went back to the chanting. That actually chanting, it's the same sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like whether chanting the holy name of God, whether I'm doing it with others or alone, it's the same sacrifice. And I'm in this question since how can I come to this place of urgency and presence, that my chanting, like even if it's by myself, that I actually get some, I don't know, experience or taste or actual connection. And so I'm contemplating on that and appreciating all that. I was considering about okay, maybe I could take a course in japa chanting, or
Yeah.
Bharat mentioned writing a pep, like, yeah, do something concrete.
Mm.
And yeah, I was, usually when I most of the time I chant on my own with Srila Prabhupada, and the recent months were such a big struggle. Like I just drift off and okay, oh, I'm not chanting anymore, so start chanting. And when I would chant with others, I would feel it would feel easier, and I didn't have this experience this time. It didn't feel easier, and I understood, and also just from the sharing here, that some years ago I went to see an Ayurvedic doctor, and my health was really low, and he said to me, like he said, you're on this bhakti marga path, that's what he called it, and with your health you have no chance. Like you should improve your health so that you can do your sadhana. And that was like for me 180 degree change of, because until then I was chanting to get energy to live my life. And there I understood, no, actually, like I should take care of myself and manage my energies so that there's energy I can put into chanting, and chanting it's hard work to really do it.
I get that shift of
Present and
that shift
urgent.
of paradigm. It worked for you.
Oh, the screen was frozen for a moment, so I didn't
Sorry.
hear what you said.
What I've heard from you, that shift of paradigm and priorities worked for you. That you focused on your health, and you did create a shift with the support of Ayurvedic professionals.
Yeah, and I am, in this question now to, how to intensify the chanting, how to increase the quality of my chanting. So yeah, I'm just appreciating and sharing some of my personal experience. And
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing your appreciation and your personal experience. And I hear you. You started your sharing with gratitude that our focus is on the chanting. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. So that's where it's so natural to focus on chanting. He's the acharya of that. I hear you have some regret. We didn't do a 8-hour, 64-round intensive this December, January, like we did last year, like they did at Mother Malini's Bhakti Yoga Retreat Ashram that Anasuya participated in. In what you express on Indinium, reminded, there's that sections of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna shares how he's the essence of the taste of wood, or the essence of the light of the sun and the moon, and he shares Yagyanam Japa Yagyosmi. Krishna shares, of all yagyas, I am Japa. I am the chanting of Japa. I am the chanting of the holy names. So I just appreciate it, because we had our yagya on January 1st for welcoming the baby to the Pakarovi family, and for a Brahminical initiation for Arjuna Prabhu. And the essence of the yagya, Prabhupada, like there's, like when Prabhupada was opening and installing the deities at Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, I think that yagya went on for days. And Prabhupada said, for the caste Brahmins to take us seriously, we're doing all this stuff. And he said, okay, we'll go along with it. But the real installation is the kirtan, the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And I hear, Anandini, you feel yourself like maybe moving to a deeper seriousness. Maybe you'll participate in a course to be more present with that most vital yagya that is Krishna Japa.
Yeah, thank you. And I also wanted to share about, when Dhira Govinda was with us, we had a class about the parallels between Lord Jesus Christ and Srila Prabhupada. And it was so, and I listened to it again just yesterday because it was so inspiring for me that we had some guests who are not, in any temple, ISKCON or whatever. They just come to our gatherings sometimes, and it was so natural, when you spoke about the disappearance of Lord Jesus Christ and the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, and there wasn't any like emotional charge.
Yeah.
Of like what? So it was just simply the appreciation or the wonder of wow, Srila Prabhupada is an amazing personality to go through this torture and still preach like Jesus Christ did on the cross. And to me that really like stood out as this is how this is how the topic, I don't know how to call it, this is how it could be handled.
Yeah.
This is how we could just speak about the glories of Srila Prabhupada without any conflict or emotional charge. And conflict. So I shared some of that with you. I wanted to share it with the group.
Yeah.
It was so enlivening and inspiring.
Thanks for sharing that part, Anandini, and thanks for organizing that program. And I too appreciated just kind of the simple naturalness of it without any shadow emotional charge, just like we might speak about Srila Prabhupada rising at 1 a.m. to give us his Bhaktivedanta purports, Srila Prabhupada organizing Ratha Yatra in Calcutta at 5 years old, Srila Prabhupada sailing on the Jaladuta, and so Srila Prabhupada's disappearance past time, and the parallels, some of which Prabhupada spoke about with the disappearance past time of Jesus and the crucifixion. Thanks for organizing that program. I appreciated it very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kishore Prabhu.
I don't know why it is I always get so nervous when it comes to, I'm always the one that's the last to step up to the mark and show up to speak. I'm just a very nervous kind of person. As ever, I take just a great pleasure just being with you all and hearing you all speak. And this particular time around, we're talking about the glories of Haridas Thakur and his disappearance, and the chanting of Krishna's holy names, the japa. First of all, Anandini, I was also moved. I have it here as Kamar's choice of words when he was reading. He said, "For some fleeting moments, my heart felt satiated, blissful, and warm. I felt submerged in love. Perhaps I tasted a molecule from a drop of Lord Chaitanya's ocean of love." I felt really moved by your expression of words there, Kumar. That's lovely. I often feel like that when I'm reading these chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, unqualified as I am. I often wonder how it is. Today I was even sitting in a setting that was in a public place, believe it or not. I took my Chaitanya Charitamrita. I read the chapter several times today, and one of those places was in a public place. Because it was so cold today, I just wanted some warmth. So I went in there. There was a coffee bar, and I was sitting there, but again, I was just feeling extremely moved by what I was reading, almost to the point of tears, even though I was in a fairly busy place, just to be warm. One of my memories of Srila Prabhupada was, and it's going back to 64 rounds, 32 rounds, 16 rounds. I also know that at the time it was par for the course for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his disciples. They would all chant 64 rounds, and that was the par for the course. That was just natural. Yeah. So naturally, when Prabhupada came to the West, that's what he tried to introduce. And of course, we all know that it was his first followers felt that it was just utterly impossible. It was just beyond. So Prabhupada, he relented and said, well, 32 rounds. And maybe after a day or so, the same reply came that this is impossible. We just can't do this. So Prabhupada finally relented and said, well, minimum 16 rounds, minimum 16. And there's also the really funny story that I can never forget, where Prabhupada, he was just with one or two of his disciples in a room, and he had been chanting his japa, and then he dropped his beads on the table like this. He said, now I'm finished my 16 rounds. I can do any damn thing I want. And it just felt so funny, because the message was that if we have this mentality that now I've done my 16 rounds, I can't do anything. It's like keep chanting. But Prabhupada's humor was just immense. It was such a great sense of humor. But I also witnessed a number of times that Prabhupada, when he was speaking with people, or even if he was sitting listening to someone, and there was no better listener than Srila Prabhupada. When you were with Prabhupada and you were saying something, whoever you were, Prabhupada was listening. But I also noticed that even when Prabhupada was listening to someone, his lips were always moving. He was always chanting. Prabhupada was never stopped chanting the Hare Krishna mantra.
Wow.
He could listen, and he could speak, and he could cook, and he could, whatever he was doing, he was always chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That's one thing I noticed about Srila Prabhupada. And it's been a great pleasure. It's probably the shortest chapter, I think, of the book that I've read so far, this disappearance pastime. And like you, Kumara, I felt some molecules of real ecstasy. And of course, these are pastimes beyond my imagination. But I'll come back though. It's like I mean, forgive me for being so reticent to come forward and speak. I don't quite know what that is, and maybe I'll get over that one at some point. But as ever, I'm just really happy to be part of this little group. And I look forward, even though it's not 5 or 6 weeks in between each meeting. I mean, I know friends, I have other god brothers and sisters who do loads of reading groups and loads of meetings, but I don't do the electronic meetings I'm not massively great at them and all that. I don't quite find them the same thing. But this is just like water in the middle of a desert for me. I find it a challenge to chant 16 rounds per day, but lately I have been doing that again. Unfortunately, I have no sanghas or association or a group of others with whom I can chant for 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 hours on a daily basis. I think I'd like the opportunity, but my japa is on my walks. I go for walks every morning for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Where I'm living, the countryside is well, I'm in a small town of Hereford, but it's quite picturesque. There is a river nearby, and I do long walks, and I try and discipline myself to stay out until I've done at least 12 rounds. Then I can finish the rest of them throughout the day or in the evening. So it's a challenge, but I'm happy that I'm somehow meeting at least the 16 rounds on a daily basis. Yeah. So again, I'm just happy to be with you all, though, and thank you for all sharing your thoughts on these remarkable chapters of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And thank you, Dhira, Govinda, for facilitating today. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Kishore Prabhu. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate your association. I'm feeling moved and inspired that you're somehow inspired by the association of this Sangha. I'm in full. I've felt blessed really for like 8-9 years now to be a part of this group of fine followers of Srila Prabhupada. I'm deeply glad that you're with us. You're participating in the group. Thanks for giving your time and association and wisdom. You know what you said. I appreciate you told the story of now I can do any damn thing I want. That's hilarious story with poignant, profound meaning from Srila Prabhupada. He's kind of role playing. He's kind of role playing and mirroring our inner conversation, or at least my inner conversation. And then thanks for sharing that. Like the Prabhupada was always chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and I like how you put that together with it. Like there's no better listener than Srila Prabhupada. Now that could seem like a contradiction. I don't in any way see it as a contradiction, because we think, well, if we're chanting, that'll be a distraction. But Srila Prabhupada, he would define the Hare Krishna mantra as not an external imposition on the mind, that this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's the original consciousness of the soul. So just like, in Safatov, we focus a lot on listening. Actually, tomorrow I'll be traveling to Wales, be conducting foundational advanced seminars organized by Savyasachi Prabhu, Scott McGregor. And so then when we talk about listening, it's about presence. It's about Brahmabhuta prasanatman, ashochati nakankshati. We're not lamenting for the past. We're not hankering for a future. Fully present. Paul Tillich, the Christian philosopher, said the first duty of love is to listen. So full presence like that. And so, so if we unpack that, what's that mean, full presence? It means we're present with and from the core of our being and the very substratum of our being. And that's the super soul. And the very substratum and the very foundation of super soul is Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And this Maha Mantra, it's the original energy, the original consciousness of the self. And so and that's why, sure, like if I'm just, whatever, singing some pop song or remembering some trivia about who won the World Cup, then that's going to distract me from my listening, because it's external to the self. But if I'm fully present with the Maha Mantra, the original presence of the soul, the original source of the soul, then that increases my presence with whoever I'm listening to. So I appreciate how you just integrated that in your sharing. Prabhupada is the most present receiver, listener possible and he was always chanting. You would see his lips moving, and for me, at least conceptually, it's completely complementary. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Kishore Prabhu, for your sharing. Thank you all for your presence, association, participation, and humble dedication to live in the spirit of Srila Haridas Thakur. I suggest that we close with a round of pearls. And I saw Krishnananda wrote, "I'm at work now and listening in. I'm really moved and inspired by all of your sharing. I'm reflecting on my own chanting and commitments, and I really want to take steps to improve in my commitment. Thank you, dear Govinda Prabhu, for facilitating and deepening the sharing. Thank you, Krishnananda. Okay, Bharat Prabhu, would you like to share a pearl? You're on mute.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And besides the pearl, I also want to say I'm open, as I think at least half of the group was sharing the inspiration about the japa and deepening the commitment to continue that via email in some way, to actually go somehow into action and maybe share with each other, or go into another format or whatever. My pearl is chant with humble enthusiasm.
Thank you, Bharat. Thanks for your pearl.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
My pearl is Lord Chaitanya said, say, all glories to Haridas Thakur, and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this.
Thank you. Thanks for your pearl. Thank you, Atmananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I see Krishnananda wrote, my pearl is my appreciation for being part of this Sangha and each of you feeling blessed. Thank you, Krishnananda.
Krishna.
Anasuya.
Yeah, I was trying to get the button. It just came to me. I want to chant like I am a baby crying for my mother.
Thank you, Anasuya.
My pearl is chant and be happy.
Chant and be happy. Thank you, Kishore Prabhu. Thank you.
My pearl is that Srila Prabhupada always chanted even while listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Anandini. Thanks for your pearl. My pearl is now I can do any damn thing I want. Hare Krishna, Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki.
Yeah.
Jai. Srila Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami ki.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you for your inspiring association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all. Hari
Hare
Hari.
Krishna. Hare Bol.